we knew that this event was going to be attended by people from all over the globe, and some are here with us now live on Zoom. Some of us are here now live with us on Facebook. Some of us are here now live in the room where we are at the Everett Community College Corporate and Continuing Education Center. And some will be listening to the recording at some time in the future on Facebook and YouTube. So you can imagine how my head is spinning that I even could tell you all of those things.
I'm going, wow.
Do you remember the days when we just like sort of walked into a room and had a chat?
I remember those days.
Yeah.
Those were the good old days. I often look back on them very fondly.
Exactly. Yesterday I was talking about disruption, and I definitely feel disrupted with the way technology has created so many access points.
I know. It's kind of crazy to keep up with it all.
Yeah.
As much as I love technology. Wow.
And Amorah and I are delighted to host this time for us to chat together a little bit with all of you about, we can hold up, we can do a little show and
a little
tell.
Vanna.
Here we go. Professional coaching principles and practice, and we happen to have one of the editors with us today, Dr. Susan English. Drum roll, please. Yay! Yeah. And I just want to say thank you to Amorah, because I wouldn't have even known about this project if it wasn't for her. So I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
I loved your chapter on team coaching.
And I loved your chapter and perspectives about the definition of coaching. And I think one of the things that Amorah and I have very much in common and have enjoyed in each other over the years is that we're geeks about the core competencies and about the framework of professional coaching that the ICF promulgates. And so we thought we'd do a couple of things today. And I want to invite those of you that are live to feel free to interrupt us at any point. We don't have formal remarks, if you will. But we thought we would talk about the history, and Amorah is going to take us through that piece. And how did all of this come to be? That we're at this stage in the evolution of the field that we're ready for it to be well documented in the form of something like this, principles and practices. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how each of us see the future of coaching evolving. I think we're at a very exciting and very transformative moment in the field, some of which might not feel appealing and some of which might be very appealing and exciting. And I think that's what innovation and transformation is really all about.
Yeah.
And then if we have some time left over after we take some questions, we thought we'd talk a little bit about how in the world did this experience go for us to write a chapter? Because one of the voices that I think is missing hugely in our field is the voice of coaches talking about their coaching. They talk about their clients and they talk about building their business, but not so much talking about what is it that they're engaged with moment to moment in their coaching from their perspective. And that was one of the great joys of writing for this particular book. And so I thought we'd do some encouraging of that.
Absolutely. And this book was put together, and correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, but it was really put together as, initially it started as a desk reference for coaches. And as it has evolved and come forward in its finalized form, it's really an advanced coaching primer.
Yeah.
So, for coaches who are just emerging, it has a lot of information for how you can get started and what you might want to begin integrating into your work now. But it also gives you a glimpse into what's possible after you get beyond your basic coach training and your first year or two of being in practice. There's more. And I think that's the most exciting thing for me about coaching is there's always more.
Always more. Exactly.
Always more to know, to learn, to develop. So that's what I have found so appealing about coaching. And I haven't stayed in any career over my lifetime as long as I have in coaching.
So how long for you, do you think?
For coaching, well, I started in 97. What is that? 22 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 22 years. Never stayed in any job that long before. And I can't imagine retiring.
Okay, it doesn't sound like a job to you.
It isn't. Well, unless my definition of job is joy of being.
Redefining, of course.
Of course.
And for those of you that don't know, she is the queen of acronyms. She has the best voice for it. It's awesome.
Well, I don't
Joy
know.
of being,
Susan
huh?
runs me a really close second there. For sure. So I wanted to just share with you, I had the privilege of coming into this newly emerging profession in 1997 and began my coach training that year. And over the next couple of years, I ended up in 1999 becoming one of the first credentialed coaches in the world, which was really a privilege. And so I wanted to give you just a little overview of how did we get here? We're 22 plus years young and still growing and still developing. So what are the roots of this? So I think it's important to note that prior to 1995, in the early 90s in particular, was when corporate CEOs who had taken their corporations beyond, what anyone else had done and were highly successful in developing those companies began retiring. And yet they stayed on as mentors and began calling themselves coaches for those who came after them, those who replaced them. So they kind of worked in tandem with those people as they stepped into their role. So that was how that aspect of coach came to be. Parallel with that in the early 90s was the human development movement. So these were things like LifeSpring and EST, which is now Landmark Forum. And so those human development processes were going on as well in parallel. And the consultants who were working in corporate America started melding some of their business strategy work with some of the human development work. And they began playing around with the mix of those two things. So that by 1995, they were calling themselves coaches, more so than consultants. And that was in 1995 was when the first two well-known professional coaching organizations came into being. And that was the Personal and Professional Coaches Association and the International Coach Federation. And in 1997, when I came into coaching, I had the privilege of being at my very first ICF conference in Atlanta, Georgia. And it was at that conference in 97 where the two organizations merged into one organization calling themselves the International Coach Federation. This cadre of coaches were meeting on their own time, and they were traveling all over the country to brainstorm what is this thing that we're developing that we're calling coaching, and what are the things that we're doing? How are we interacting with people? What are the ways? What are the methods? What are the mindsets and the philosophies that we're really bringing into those conversations that set them apart from what we've done in the past? And so these competitors came together regularly, and they hammered out what is now called the ICF Core Coaching Competencies. There are 11 competencies in 4 domains that were developed as a result of these people coming together and putting their skill sets to the test. And then also in 1999 is when they were formalized. And then in 1999 was also when the first 3 ICF accredited coach training programs came forward. Then from there, so coach training began to take hold, particularly in North America, and it has since spread all over the globe. And so there are coach training organizations everywhere for people to learn this profession in. And between 2001 and 2003, a new credential was added. So in 1999, there were 2 credentials: professional certified coach and master certified coach, PCC and MCC. Then in 2001, the ACC was introduced, which is Associate Certified Coach. And it was introduced as a way to give coaches who were in their training and just emerging into the marketplace as coaches to have some credibility in the marketplace, to be able to say to people, I have a credential as a coach. And so it was designed to help them build their practices and have that credibility behind that. In 2004 to 2005, ICF commissioned a job study, and so then the credential or the competencies were broken down to behaviors by credential levels. So the credentialing and competency framework expanded at that point. And then in 2009 was when a job analysis process first authenticated the competencies as a skill set for this thing called a coach. And right now, I believe another one is underway.
That's right.
So they're aiming to do this about every 5 years, I think it is. And so we have a new job analysis process underway. And then in 2014, a document called the Pcc Markers came out, which really set the gold standard of the professional certified coach by defining what are the behaviors that are expected, really, of a professional certified coach, someone who is at that level of training and experience. And so they're continuing to grow and evolve. They are the basic body of knowledge for the profession of coaching, and there you go. And so, as you can see, they're in 4 domains. So, setting the foundation has 2 competencies, which is establishing or managing ethical guidelines, and then also establishing the coaching agreement. And then we have co-creating the relationship, which contains building trust and intimacy and coaching presence. And then there's the communicating effectively, which is active listening, powerful questioning, and direct communication. And then the last module or area is facilitating learning and results. So we have the competencies of creating awareness, designing actions, managing or planning and goal setting, and then managing progress and accountability. So all of these wrap into what it takes to be a coach and what it takes to know and learn and grow into. How do you have this kind of a conversation with another human being that's designed primarily to create awareness for self-development and human behavioral change that is sustainable?
Awesome. One of the things that has always struck me about my own journey with the competencies, and I'm just going to take a quick look here to make sure that I have some new folks that want in, so let me do that. Hold on just 1 second. Here we go.
Ding dong.
So I went to Chicago in 1998. Wasn't quite ready to go to Atlanta, but I did go to Chicago in 1998. And in those days, the core competencies to me seemed really silly. I read them. I kind of went, okay, well, what's the rocket science here? I don't get it.
Yeah.
And of course, I've come out of corporate life and using coaching in change leadership, and I was trained in classical OD, and really just came in more of the business side of things. And so then I went off and did my first of 3 coach certifications because, as I said, I am
She's
now
an overachiever.
And as I started to dive in, I realized, wow, there is so much more here than is on the page. And really that I am the instrument of the work, that the competencies themselves provide us with a roadmap perhaps, but they are in no way a limitation. In fact, if anything, they set me free because I realize that it's about the quality of the partnership between myself and the other, and what we're able to lean into and allow to be emergent out of our exchange over time, as opposed to a prescription or a recipe or a formula. And I know an awful lot of
fix.
Or a quick fix, right? Silver bullet. Sorry,
yeah.
Don't mean to be violent. I will take that back. Let's reel that back. The violin or something.
Magic beans.
but I think this is what goes to the future, because one of the things that kind of breaks my heart when I talk to coaches around the world is that they're looking for the answer. How do I know I'm a good coach? How do I know I'm doing good work? How is it that I'm being evaluated? Just tell me how to get it done so I can get on with my coaching. and right,
and what
that's
are the
paradox.
steps? Okay, step one, we do what? And then we do what? Step two? Kind of give me that kind of overview of what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And of course, the good news about that is that there's a lot of interest and people want to participate and they want to contribute. And yet there's something far more profound about the vocation of coaching. And I believe in my heart of hearts, we haven't even begun to scratch the surface on what's possible. And sort of in the roots of being an ethical practitioner is allowing ourselves to be in a state of wonder all the time about our work. And I think the competencies give us the permission to do that. Those are the boundaries, if you will, of what we think distinguishes coaching from counseling, from mentoring, from training, from consulting, all of which are wonderful human development modalities, and each have their place. And it's up to us as practitioners ethically to understand what is the best contribution. And then when coaching is what it is, it's that co-creative process of articulating what do neither one of us know. There's another way to say that.
That wants to be known.
Right, that wants to be known. What is it that I can, as a client, I can feel right on the edge of myself. I love this about my coach. She knows that I'm not coming with something really structured. I'm coming with something that's frustrating me beyond belief because I can't quite grasp it. And that by the safety and the quality of the interaction between us, there's something that she will pick up on that I'm blind to in that moment that opens a door, a crack in a door. Oh, well, if that's true, I wonder what it might mean about X or Y, and we're off and running. So in some ways, to me, the history gave us the place to begin. It's like we step on a threshold and the door is open and that it's a wide horizon out in front of us. To me, that's expansive, and that's a lot what the future is about. And I'm less concerned about anybody doing it right and more concerned about attention to our sense of well-being, our sense of partnership, our sense of contribution in a useful way, which isn't ours to define. That's our clients to define. Now,
it's about being in service.
Yes.
Being in service to the other, to their overarching goals and what they're committed to, what their value system is, and helping them stay aligned with that and then move forward from that place. Get off the hamster wheel of the shoulda, woulda, couldas, and really get into the meat of who am I, what do I want, and where do I want to go from here. And that's what I love about working with my coaching clients.
And it doesn't matter what context we're in, whether I'm sitting across from a CEO inside of a company who's trying to figure out to do a merger and acquisition or change their executive team, or I'm working with someone who is an empty nester trying to figure out, is it time now for me to go have my encore career? It does not matter what the context is. All of us as whole beings are given an opportunity in a coaching partnership to quiet maybe it's the outside in chase, what I haven't yet done in my life, to quiet that noise a little bit. And to listen a little bit more deeply to what do I value? Who am I at my core? And how am I making choices that's allowing the full expression of that in a way that contributes? One of the pieces that I've heard people talking about in terms of the future of coaching is, whose agenda is it anyway? All right, don't coaches actually have an agenda? Well, I think it's the wrong question. Of course we have an agenda to serve, to contribute, to create a healthy partnership, to
help create awareness within the client.
Yes, awareness, learning, insight, emergence. Yes, that's what we're called to the profession for in the first place. And of course clients have an agenda. But the question is, how are we creating the partnership in a way that is contributory to both? Otherwise, we wouldn't continue to do this. Coaching has grown exponentially because it's contributing. Now, what if we step back, and I think this is a big future of coaching right now, what if we step back and really understand what's happening? I was just reading, this book's been out for a while, but Paul Brown and Virginia Brown wrote a book called The Neuropsychology of Coaching. Have you picked up theirs?
I haven't.
So they kind of did a little reversal. Most of the neuroscientists have talked about the science and then retrofit it to coaching. What these guys did was say, let's take executive coaching and reveal how the neuroscience supports what's going on. And Amorah and I think, agree on this one too. Why do coaches need neuroscience to prove that what we do works? That's a little bit of the heretic in me. So I enjoy understanding the neuroscience, but I found myself, as I was reading the book for the second time, realizing how much I had already learned what the science was affirming. And I'd learned it out of thousands of hours of working with clients about the pathway of personal change and how we drop the neural filters that get in our way, and what it is to activate an internal sense of, yes, I can, and yes, I will, and now I am, and I choose. All right, and that's an evolutionary journey at every stage of development as a human being. And the equality, the equanimity, and the coaching partnership is what I think awakens that. Mm-hmm. I've always said coaching is awakening consciousness, and I think that's the third thing I want to say about where I think the future is going. That we're broadening what the applications are, and therefore the influence is of what emerges out of a coaching partnership. And it has lots of forms now. It's embedded into learning and development. It's embedded into culture work. It's embedded into the way in which we even do job design today. When you look at the numbers, like hundreds of numbers of job definitions that have coaching embedded in them, which was the original vision of the International Coach Federation, to make it an integral part of society. And wow, how about that? I think it's happening. Which brings me to a question I want to ask you about the future, which is, do you think coaching will dissolve?
Dissolve? Not per se. I don't think so. I think it will meld as a primary vehicle for communicating. That's the vision I've always held for coaching, is that we would, through being coaches ourselves, through working with our clients and letting them experience the power of being perceived as whole and capable, and that they have resource and creativity for anything they want to achieve. I think it will. It's growing. It's a ripple effect. It's growing exponentially. And as more and more of us learn how to communicate in this way, really listen to one another and respond rather than react, I think it will eventually become more of the mainstream way in which we interact. And I'm finding in my practice as a one-on-one coach, I have a lot of people coming because this time in the world is so profoundly shaking everyone's perceptions about who they are, how they fit in the world, what are my value system, what do I believe in. And so I think in the interim, before coaching becomes the primary communication vehicle, I think we have a lot of opportunity to work one-on-one and in organizations to really support people who are on the quest to figure out, what is it really that I want to be a champion of, that I want to be a stand for, that I want to radiate out into the world, into my work, into my team, into my family, that will really build bridges among humanity.
Like that, building bridges among humanity. And I think that's really where my provocative question is going. I have this sense of we've made an evolutionary leap in our human relating that coaching is facilitating. And I'm sure we have 3 or 4 or 5 decades more in the framework that we have. And, you know, I fully expect the job analysis that's wrapping up this year will cause a new version of the framework to emerge. And I think that's great. Those of us that have been coach educators for a while have been complaining about some of the competency language is not quite as descriptive and specific as it could be. So I
Not
know
quite as useful.
So I'm sure that we're all going to be well supported by that. But I think there's more innovation coming, and I've been a champion for some time about more of us masterminding. What are we experimenting with for real in our sessions, and how might it contribute to an expansion of how coaching is applied? So
Absolutely.
Why don't we open it up? You all are welcome to, your mics are open, you're welcome to talk.
Janet, there was a question here. Do you think credentialing will become mandatory at some point, as licensure is for therapists and counselor? And Amorah?
I think it's a very interesting question. There's a corollary version that I'll say first and then pass it over to Amorah. I often get the question, why do I have to bother with a credential? My clients don't ask me about it. To which because I'm kind of cheeky, I usually say back, why aren't you telling them about it? You spent thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours acquiring this competency, and you wouldn't tell somebody about that as a part of your pride in your work and as evidence of your quality and your rigor, which usually is followed by some silence. And I said, so how are you relating to this as a professional endeavor for yourself? Because ultimately, we wouldn't go to a doctor, we wouldn't go to a dentist, we wouldn't go to a lawyer, we wouldn't go to a personal trainer, a psychiatrist, other professional endeavors, if they hadn't had some evidence of some training and some ongoing commitment to quality in their work. And to me, this is really what the credentialing system is. It's not meant as licensure. It is meant as evidence of a peer-based review and a commitment to a continuous process of quality and ethical conduct.
And continuous personal and professional development. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in some ways it is mandated by what's the word? By common practice. So in most organizations who are public organizations, it's become the first question they ask before someone can go to a chemistry meeting. Have you been trained in some competency model that's recognized globally? So International Coach Federation, European Mentoring Coaching Council, Association for Coaching, Association of Asia Pacific Coaches, right? And lots of bodies of that. So the consumer is getting smarter about, wow, well, this is a professional endeavor. Let's find out what this person is made of and what their experience is and so on. And so I suppose I'm probably glass overflowing kind of mindset, and I don't think about things as mandatory. I can't imagine not being in continuous education around this practice, because my clients show up with stuff and I'm like, oh my, wow, never occurred to me to think about that. Let me go explore that for myself. So the work itself engenders a commitment to an ongoing learning process, which I think a credentialing supports.
I think so too. And I think another question I get often is, why should I pay dues and be a member of International Coach Federation? And I would say we enjoy, as credentialed coaches, we enjoy the benefits of our membership, because the ICF is out in the world globally, educating the consumer and organizations about the value and benefit of expecting a coach to be fully trained and experienced at specific levels and peer-reviewed, that they can perform at that level. So that's another reason for me that I invest my dues money every year, because they are doing advocacy for me out in the marketplace and making my job of saying I'm a coach much easier.
Plus, they hold these amazing virtual conferences. I don't know if you guys got the ICF Advanced this year. Wow, that's some great material there. And are you going to Prague?
I'm not going to Prague.
Oh, it's such a beautiful city. So the fact that they host conferences and that there are chapters all over the globe. And I say to students all the time, you will never be a stranger when you travel the world. There is a coach someplace.
Exactly.
In 144 countries and 35,000 of them. So to me, it doesn't get any better than that. It's a wonderful global community, borderless.
Well, and I think that's a key point too, is because oftentimes as a professional coach, we're solopreneur. And so to have a community and to have gathering places of other professionals like ourselves I think it's vital for me, for my well-being, to be able to intermingle in that way.
Last week, I just had the joy of my life. I had a proposal I was working on that was going to require 9 different languages. And I realized that I knew people in all those 9 languages who were amazing practitioners. In a half an hour, they were all, yeah, count me in. Like, how does that happen? That's amazing.
Well, that's the other thing about coaching is that coaches are so generous with one another and so welcoming and open. I don't know of any other profession that can really say that truly about its practice.
Okay. Oh, that's great, Susie. I'm glad that you do let people know. Woohoo! So, any other questions with the people who are here on Zoom with us, or is there anything that you're seeing on Facebook Live, Lori or Sarah? As they go look. Susan, anything you want to add about the book process, since you were our master editor?
Yeah, you want to tell us how the book came to be? It started in your corner.
Well, you were talking about the community of coaches, and as a coach educator, we really work on and developing that community, with our students. And so one of our students has written books in Gestalt therapy, and he came to coaching to add that to his skill set. And he said, do you and Janice, one of the other editors, would you like to work with me on this? And it just seemed like a good idea.
Right?
So he had connections with the Springer, which is a major academic publishing house. We'd had never gotten in without him because we didn't have that connection. But he, as that community of coaches, he had that connection and invited us to do it. And then we just reached out to the people that we knew or had heard of. And asked them to participate. And we did go to Amorah and say, hey, we need a chapter on this.
I'm long in the tooth in this profession, so I've met a lot of coaches.
So it was a couple years in conception, and then it was another year or so in actually getting it together. But it's been delightful. It's developed somewhat of a community around the authors, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and now our local chapter of the ICF is going to be doing a bi-monthly, every other month webinar focusing on one of the chapters in the book. So other people may want to think about this or join us. Going to, I think they're going to apply for CCEUs for this. And so it'll be like a 1-hour webinar expecting people to have pre-read the chapter and then come and have a good discussion really focused on that chapter.
Yeah.
And so we're excited.
Yeah.
In their first one, there's a free chapter that's out there by Richard Boyatzis, and he recently said, yeah, I'd love to come to that webinar and be on that webinar. So we'll be inviting the authors.
Which ICF chapter is it?
It's Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a fabulous thing for the other chapters to tag along on. So I happen to have the past president of ICF Washington sitting here and the current president of ICF Oregon. So I think we can make something happen out here.
There's probably going to be something happening in the Northwest.
Yes, I don't know if it's on the website yet. They're still in the planning process, but they have the date now in March that Richard Boyatzis can be present. So they just got that date.
Nice.
So that'll be the kickoff, and then they'll go from there. So it's advanced coaching. So with those chapters, our chapter was getting accused of always focusing on beginning. So we're hoping that this will be an easy format for coaches who are very busy and they're more advanced, and that they'll take time to step in and it's a place to get your CCEUs.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
And here's just a sampling of some of the chapters. So the business of coaching today, professional standards, a developmental journey, coaching research, a critical review, mindful, compassionate coaching, an approach perfect for VUCA time. The coach's imperative, expanding perspectives, acceptance and commitment therapy-based coaching, leadership coaching as a growth cycle. So you can see there's a wide array of wisdom and knowledge and expertise that's being outlined in these 37 chapters, I think. 37 chapters.
Amorah's is the very first chapter.
35.
And I haven't counted them, but we have authors from Greece and the Netherlands and from England and New Zealand.
Yes.
So it's an international.
And there's a chapter in here by my colleague Edmé Schalks in the Netherlands on culture and coaching that is, it'll blow your mind. It's such a different perspective on culture.
And then mine's 31, team coaching. Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, having guys vision is one way to it.
Yeah.
Haven't made one. Do you have an idea?
I would see coach training programs maybe using it as a textbook.
Yeah, we had anticipated adding it to it. So in our reading curriculum, there are a set of required books. Rachel will remember that, and we're going to add that to one of the first books. So, yeah.
We're going to use it in a new coaching program I'm developing for women religious. We'll be having webinars over a 2-year period as part of their training. And so we're going to use the book.
Good.
That's terrific. Susan, tell everyone where you are, where you work, what you do.
I'm at Pittsburgh. I work for our training programs with Duquesne University. And the new program I'm developing will be a small program that'll be housed in our monastery. And so it will include room and board for women religious, Catholic women religious.
Wow.
Focusing on the 50,000 women who are nuns.
Right.
Marvelous.
In the U.S.
Yes. And I know this is a project near and dear to your heart, Susan. Well done.
Yes. And the thing I would add to your definitions of coaching and the discussion is that I really see as contributing to world peace. If everybody was using coaching skills, if our politicians were using coaching skills, I think it would be a big step towards creating more world peace.
Indeed.
So I really see it as a spiritual mission.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Love that inspiration. It's terrific.
Too. And just to bring some levity to it, I happened to see Miss Congeniality the other day, and I was thinking of Lucy May Freebush and world peace. Sorry.
In all seriousness, one of the things that I notice in team coaching work is how important resonance is. The ability to sense when a field starts to coalesce around a common idea, that everyone has optimism and enough faith to overcome whatever fear they have to take the risk to do something, move something forward. And that's why team coaching so fascinates me, because that's government, that's spirituality, that's educational system, that's human society, much more broadly than teams in companies. Of course, that's important, but I think that this learning how to be in community, in action, in a harmonious way is something that we're starving for all over the world. And I think coaching's learned a lot about this and has a lot to contribute. So I hope you enjoy that chapter, because I'm really bringing some of that forward. And And, you know, the 100th monkey, as soon as I finished my chapter, I saw all kinds of stuff coming out in written form about team coaching and group coaching. And maybe that was my reticular activating system. You know, I couldn't see the red card till I bought one. And what I know is that when we make such a big contribution like this book, it has the ripple effect of other people saying, oh, I can do this too. And there aren't enough voices. So I want to make my pitch again that I said at the beginning, that I really wish all coaches would take the time to talk about their coaching experience. What's happening for me as a coach? And, you know, in many ways, this is what coaching supervision and mentor coaching is all about, that there's a disciplined practice of self-reflection, to be an observer of our own work and allow an inner coach to have a voice that is part of our ongoing development. And I find that very enlivening, personally.
Absolutely.
You know, as you're talking, and I don't know why this popped into my head, but you know how often complain that everybody's using the word coach, and that people are out there just anything that had to do with training, education, they're calling themselves coaches. But the thing that it just occurred to me is that is part of the sign that it's spreading, you know. And then as they know coaching's important, but now eventually they'll start to know that being trained and that coaching is especially. So I think in some ways it's a good sign that everybody wants to use the word coach.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it opens conversation. People say, well, what kind of a coach are you? It used to be, are you a sports coach? But now they'll say, what kind of a coach are you? Are you a life coach? Or, you know, are you a team coach? And actually, this is something some of the authors and I have had a lot of discussion about, which is, I really wish people would stop putting anything in front of coach that's other than professional. Because the consumer doesn't know the difference, right? So when I'm out in the world, I say, I'm a professional coach who awakens leaders to pursue sovereign choices and live into their wholeness in the workplace. Now, my clients know that. They know who they are. They want to be awakened. They're trying to create a healthier workplace, and they know that I'm the coach that works with those kinds of people. It's so much more useful in terms of building business, in terms of being able to say, what's the contribution that we make out of this coaching partnership? Saying executive coach in front of the word is confusing as all get out.
And my personal view is it's egotistical.
Say again, that it's what?
Egotistical.
Oh, I think it is. I think it tries to...
I'm an executive coach and you're not.
Executives are worthy of getting something.
Hi, Jody McCrae. Welcome.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to see coaching, of course, being in ministry, I want to see coaching that reaches out to the poor and to those that can't pay and to those that are suffering. And I just got the ACTO newsletter. And in fact, I just responded to part of that ACTO newsletter. They have some kind of program that is going to be for women who have come out of prison or who are domestic violence or something. And so I just sent an email just for this to say I'm interested in knowing more about this and possibly participating or recruiting for you.
And for those of you who may not know, ACTO is an association. It's the Association of Coach Training Organizations. It's a global organization of coach trainers and training programs.
And what a wonderful another example of the generosity of the coaching field. And I've had the privilege to work with the foundation of ICF and the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. One of them, number 4, is about education. And there are now 46 projects going on around the world where coaches are giving of their time to organizations dedicated to access and quality in education. Everything from schools in the bush to women who can't get into colleges in countries and in certain locales around the world, to everyday ordinary charter schools, and how do we do that smarter here? So kind of leveling the playing field and supporting the people who are doing good work in that, but maybe aren't as effective as leaders. And that's a way for us to help bolster them to do better work at the end population. And that's really what the foundation's work is about, is furthering social change.
And 2 projects here in Washington.
2 in Washington.
Yeah.
Yes!
Yeah.
That's exciting. Yep. So, Jody, welcome. Hey, happy you're here. You'll be able to see it on Facebook Live, and Zoom recording will be on our YouTube channel. So we can go back and listen at your leisure.
Any other thoughts or questions for what we've covered so far?
Molly, you're uncharacteristically quiet.
Yeah, I'm thoughtful and reflective. Thank you. One of the other things that ACTO is up to this year is their conference is going to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion by looking at how coaching is a celebration, illumination, and I forget the other word that's in the title, of all of humanity. So I think that's another area in which, as a profession, there is a lot for us to wake up to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think the streams that fed into coaching, that the retiring CEOs, the human potential movement, all of those were imbued to a large extent with a lot of privilege, which is not a bad thing, and it can be a limiting thing.
Yeah.
As we grow and find our base and realize that, at least in my view, coaching isn't just a modality that looks at people as if they're whole, creative, and resourceful, and then sees what happens. I think coaching is growing out of the emerging awareness that, holy crap, people are whole, creative, and resourceful. Every one of them infinitely. And there's a certain kind of human interaction that when we meet people where they are, as they are, in their infinite genius and potential, that we can catalyze, awaken, support, facilitate, encourage their unique growth, their unique path, and that it can look really different than some of the pathways that emerged in the first years of coaching. And I feel very passionate about deepening, extending, and really challenging ourselves to see the truth of what we're onto in this profession and really go for it and not settle for version 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0. Let's find the core.
Yeah.
So someday I would love to see the prelude to the ICF definition of coaching say that we recognize and realize that all human beings are whole, creative, and resourceful. And as a result of that, we meet our clients where they are and we partner with them in these ways, rather than this is something we've discovered is a helpful way to look at people, no matter how troubled they might appear.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
Backwards.
I was just at an HR summit in Atlanta, and one of the lines that started off the panel is that diversity is asking someone to the party, inclusion is asking them to dance. I think we're not dancing yet, and I really appreciate your thoughts, Molly, on where we need to go as a profession with that inclusion.
Yep, and who gets to choose the music? And there are imperfections along the way, but can we challenge ourselves to notice that even in our most exalted good work, we're working within a limit, and that there's something. I think there's something a lot smarter, wiser, bigger, holier, connected than we are as individuals, and that we're tapping that into that as coaches, and that we can stand for that as a community and as a profession without getting bogged down in a particular expression of that in one dogma or another.
Right.
You know, I'm thinking about, I work a lot with surgeons these days. I don't know why, this happens to be an industry I'm in a lot. And they always talk about the moment when the patient is open on the table and they do not perceive they are doing anything. That it's the hand of God or the hand of spirit or universe that's moving through them. And they almost feel like, God, don't let me get in the way. Like whatever you're doing, it's work.
Yeah.
And it's really a spiritual moment for them. And they liken it to coaching, that their experience, that coaching gives them that moment to realize they're significantly insignificant and don't waste a second of it, because it's a miracle I even exist.
Yeah.
And I think it's a restoration process to me that happens in coaching, that people reclaim that unique magnificence they have within.
Yeah, I often say that in my coaching work, I give my clients back to themselves.
Exactly. Exactly.
The dimension of making coaching accessible to people of all income levels and classes and cultures, I think, is also very interesting. I've been experimenting with coaching as part of a gift ecology in the last several years. Even though I've been doing it for several years, I feel like a total newbie at it. But I think there are ways to look at how we position ourselves, how we relate to our communities, whether they're defined as a neighborhood or an online virtual community, that there are many more ways to think about how we source and resource ourselves economically and otherwise, and that we have a responsibility, not just in a do-gooding way, but it's like to ourselves as human beings, a responsibility for looking at the economics and finances of coaching in a deeper and broader way.
I wonder sometimes if we understand enough. Sorry, this is like two thoughts that are unformed. Molly does this to me. She catalyzes me into these whole other conversations. But I often feel that there's a guardedness about being a coach practitioner that comes out of some scarcity meme. Its origins are unclear to me. And there's 7 billion people on the planet. There will never be enough coaches. And to Susan's point, if everyone adopted the coaching stance, the world would be far more harmonious than it is now. And we have 8 rise and falls of civilization to prove that we haven't figured this out yet. So there's plenty of opportunity. And
there's a lot of upside.
There's a lot of upside. It's that paradox I find very disturbing. And it works at cross purposes to what you're talking about, which is how do we right size professional vocation? It's not unique to coaching. This is true in all of the human development modalities. It's true. It's starting to show up in all the licensure professions where they're getting price squeezed. So our kind of overall climate of greed and income inequality are external influences on this process. And how do people do great work without regard for, I got to put a roof over my head, right? And that's the progressive socialist message. And we're not going to go all the way there either, because there's need for the ability to fuel development in parts of the world that don't have what we have in first world countries. So they're complex questions here. They aren't going to get solved out of a scarcity mentality. I know that.
I think it's always puzzled me that our profession, which is built on the perception of potential genius capacity in our clients, that so often individual coach practitioners get stuck in, how will I build a practice conversations, as if that's a problem. I think it's an interesting project, But how could that be a problem if you're infinitely whole, resourceful, and creative, and you're a human being? I mean,
Exactly.
there's a box that we're not aware we're building around ourselves.
And there's a great deal of resource and tools and people. Buy my program and you'll have success, which is outside in, another antithetical thing to the practice of coaching. And while I agree that all of us benefit from a diligent discipline of how we connect with people and build value for who we are, it is something that's very specific to each person. And not something we're going to find outside of whatever our unique rhythm is. And they want coach training schools to fix this problem. And that's not what a coach training school is, right? You go to coach training to learn the craft of coaching. We're talking about entrepreneurialism. We're talking about, mindset of feeling worthy of what we contribute. And those are bigger questions. So is that a responsibility of the profession? I don't have the answer to that question. It's a very interesting one.
Great question. So thanks for inviting me to speak up, Janet.
Absolutely.
Always.
Absolutely. You are one very wise human being and a cherished practitioner in the field. So thanks for joining us today.
Well, and I think I know that's been a big part of my work as a coach over the last 22 years, is helping people overcome those limiting ideas about their potential, about their income creating capabilities, about their worthiness. So I think as each individual coach comes to grips with that within themselves, because it's a mass consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. So as each individual comes into awareness about that and makes their own shifts in relation to it, then it reverberates out to the others who are captive of that idea, and it makes that idea have a little less grip. So I appreciate the ripple effect of the work that we do too, in breaking down some of these barriers and limitations to that wholeness for each of us.
And while I think as a profession and as trainers and developers of coaches, it doesn't make sense to me that we need to be responsible for teaching people how to build a business.
Right.
I do think that we have an accountability for how we talk about it, how we think about it, how we model it. In the early days when I came to coaching in 1996, and some of the early things about the profession had something of a network marketing vibe about it. Like, come, become a coach, get your friends to be a coach. There was promises of easy ways to make a living right next to the promises that this is a meaningful way to serve. So I think they were well intended, but there's some prosperity gospel that has not been well grounded or examined, mixed in with what I think are more genuine intuitions and perceptions about human potential. And so we just need to look at some of the messages we're sending about what success looks like for a coach. I think we could hold up a much more diverse picture of coaching success.
Hear, hear.
And on top, I want to add, from ICF Washington, actually, we started addressing this in our own small way. So from 2016, as Janet, you have been there in the town hall, we started talking about this. So our mission is building strategic partnership with the market, with consumers. So we are going to conferences, we are partnering with the universities as ICF, showcasing coaching so that we promote ICF, we promote coaching so that our members, when they go to the market, it's more ready for them.
Right.
So that's what we started doing.
Yeah. So that was ICF Washington. Yeah.
And what a wonderful win-win, because the volunteers at the chapter level who are participating in those initiatives, they learn about how to show up in their authentic presence, right? In that practice of doing that, and then can do it on their own as well. And so
they get to push through those
reciprocity.
Yeah. That's the community. We are doing it together. We are learning from each other, and we are building the muscles that when I go and showcase my own business, I feel bigger. I'm not that small person anymore.
Yeah, you're not just a standalone practitioner, right?
And in our projects that we did last year, each and every coach actually said that. They had so much fun marketing. And I said, this is what happens when we work together.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Great idea and a great program putting together. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know.
Do we have a drawing or a
Well, we could do that. So there's two things going on here. Amorah and I both have a gift of a coaching session, one from her and one from me for having been here today. We also, inviteCHANGE purchased 20 books, and we bought them at the discounted price from the publisher, and we're making them available to anyone who has participated live here. So we have a few people in the room. You're welcome to write a check for me now if you want, or let me know and I can send it to you, and would make that same offer to all of you.
And that price is?
I'm trying to remember. Is it $39? Susan, you're on mute. I think it's $39.
I know the regular price is $65.
Right.
Think.
Yeah. The code for getting the discount is
yeah, actually I don't need the code. I've got some. So I bought 20,
okay.
Right? So, and we'll sign them. So that's the difference, right? Rather than going and using the code, Amorah and I will sign these issues and send to you. And so it's 40% off the 65. So I think that's 39. For any math whizzes in the room.
I'm gonna get out a calculator, quick.
So
and so if you want that, those of you that are here, please feel free to send me an email, and Amorah and I will sign some books, and I'll be sure to get them off to you. Somebody figured it. Yes, $39.
Yay!
There is a discount code that's good till the end of June if you go to Springer. If somebody wants to purchase more books or purchase, so it's English 25. I think it's 20. I think that means 25% off.
Excellent.
Good.
Excellent.
Yay!
All right. Well, that's all we had for this evening. If there's anybody else that wants to make, we have a couple more. Let's see. Lisa, let me promote you, Lisa, so that you can.
Hello, Lisa.
Welcome. If there's nothing else, we'll sign books here with the folks who are with us here at Everett Community College. And thank you for joining us, Susan, especially. Really very wonderful to have our editor here, and appreciate the lively discussion that we coaches have when we come together. It's really a treat.
Thank you, everybody. Good to see you guys.
Thank you.
I would love a book. I would love a book. How would I get a hold of one?
Send janet.harvey@invitechange.com an email. And
I did already. Perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I would like to say one thing in closing.
Sure.
As someone who is around the age of all of these brilliant goddess women, I just want to say I'm so grateful that you had the courage to step out a lot sooner than I did and create and be part of this profession and tee it up for the rest of us, because it really is, I've discovered the purpose of why all of that went before, but just so grateful. And Amorah and Janet and Molly, who was here earlier, just so grateful that we have a profession to step into.
You bet. Well, thank you. Thanks for stepping up to the plate, Sarah.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us.
It's just too much fun.
It is too much fun.
Yes. Outstanding. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Bye, everybody.